Hi, my name is Nick. I am a PhD student based in Palmerston North in New Zealand, and I was diagnosed with MS about 5 or 6 years ago. And so prior to my diagnosis, I was really physically active, and I was cycling about 400 to 500 kilometers a week at one point, and did lots of climbing and tramping, and sort of as a young man, one of my big ambitions was to climb Mount Cook and then also Mount Everest. And so I was sort of working towards those goals, and I was pretty on track. I was pretty fit. And then one day, just everything changed. I literally almost overnight went from being totally fit to almost being unable to walk a flight of stairs in our house from the bottom story to the top. And this was a huge struggle for me, and things got worse and worse, and then I ended up in a mobility scooter for a little while, for about 18 months before I was finally diagnosed. And so when I was diagnosed, I realized that I had to make some big lifestyle choices if I wanted to change my situation and not end up in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. And so I made some dietary changes and started exercising at the gym and working on stress management and that kind of thing. And these made a big difference. And then eventually, with time, I began to realize that actually I might be able to start tramping and climbing again. And these tramps to begin with very small, and then got larger and larger. And then last year, I decided to take a little bit of time out of study and do some traveling and some climbing. And so I sort of, it was a bit of a crazy and a bit of a random idea to begin with. And I thought, I'd love to do some climbing in the Himalayas. And at the time, this was like a monumental goal. And I began training towards it, but it was huge, and it was I was having to spend a lot of time at the gym and this kind of thing. I was really being very rigorous with my diet and stuff, but it was still a massive goal, and I was unsure if I was going to actually achieve it. But then one day I got a phone call from a guy called Greg from MitoQ. And he started talking about their supplement that they have, and I began taking it as I started training. I think one of the things which I noticed straight away was how my stamina increased, or stamina and recovery time increased at the gym. So I was doing exercising at the gym 3 times a week for about 1.5 to 2 hours each session, and in that time I'd do about 45 minutes to an hour of pretty hard out interval training with a mask that simulates altitude, and it was really draining, sort of doing this training at 3 and then 4 and then 5 and 6,000 meters, reducing the oxygen. But what always amazed me is while I would be tired for the rest of the day, I'd be pretty shattered often after these workout sessions, the next day I'd be okay. And this was quite a new thing, because previously when I was working at the gym, I would have a really hard day at the gym and would take several days to recover. But when I started taking MitoQ, it shortened that recovery time quite significantly. And I had the stamina to just keep on going and going. And so I made incredible progress, a lot more progress than I actually thought was even possible in about 8 months leading up to my trip to Nepal. So I got to India and Nepal and did a bit more training over there, and then finally managed to summit a 6,000 meter peak just off the side of Mount Everest called Island Peak. And that was just like an out of this world moment. It was just amazing. So getting to the top just before sunrise, watching the sunrise over the mountains, it was just mind blowing. Total highlight. One of the most amazing things that I think I've ever done my whole entire life. It was just astounding. But then coming back, I think what I didn't quite anticipate was the toll that altitude takes on the body. And so I went over about 82 kilos, and I returned home just a little bit over 65 kilos. So I'd lost about 15 kilos while I was over there. I think muscle loss and stuff is pretty standard with altitude, but it just really caned me. And I also developed a chest infection as a result of sort of my lungs cracking out from the cold air, and that knocked me as well. And so just before Christmas, sort of about a month and a half after I'd returned from Nepal, I totally crashed. And in some ways that kind of knocked me back quite a few steps in terms of my probably about 2 or 3 years worth of work at the gym. Just sort of went out the door in terms of strength and of stamina, and then also developed a few other problems as well. And so I think it just that was a really tough time. Then also on top of that, I coming back from Nepal, I was asked to write a book about my trip and about my journey with MS. And I had said yes to this, and writing was to begin in January. And I had 3 months to write this book, and I was just smashed. So I continued taking my MitoQ and upped the dosage a little bit. And one of the amazing things was that I really noticed was in the past I've had brain fog has been a big problem, and when your body is smashed, your mind often just doesn't think clearly, and it's really hard to try and like write or something like that, because your mind's just soup. And but despite the fact that my body was totally shattered during this time, my mind was clear, and I found that surprising, and definitely put that down to the MitoQ. And so I was able to write the book in 3 months, which was great. And the body has still taken quite a while to recover, but we are making progress again, which is great.